Weird Realities Network presents Blondes, Books, and Campfire Tales, where we pull up a log, roast a marshmallow, and settle in as these two blondes talk spooky tales, urban legends, and classic horror icons. Exciting guests, perky blondes, and sinister tales makes this podcast as good as a double stack s'more. So let's join Bethany and Crystal as they gather around the campfire in Blondes, Books, and Campfire Tales.
Hey, welcome to Blondes, Books, and Campfire Tales. And as usual, we start and my mom texts me going, we can't find the podcast.
We just barely started.
Literally. Yeah.
Give us a moment, ma'am, please. I was just having a thought as our video was playing, because today is Ricky's birthday.
Right?
Your birthday also on a podcast day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, oh my gosh. That's so funny.
Isn't yours?
That's the dedication.
That's the dedication. Mine was not. I think mine was, I don't know. I feel like it was a Friday or a Thursday.
Something like that. John,
I don't think we had even started the season yet. It's fine. But happy birthday, Ricky!
Happy birthday!
Thank you.
So I know we didn't do any advertisements for this week, but I think people just know that we're going to be on. But we're going to talk about vampires and vampire lore. And right, there's so much stuff to go on. There's so many different types of vampires out there.
So many. Can I say, this is not the documentary that I'm going to be talking about the most from, but one of them that I was watching, it kept referring to them as the ravenous undead.
Okay.
And that might have been my most favorite thing to hear.
Yeah, hungry.
Well, now you need to elaborate on that.
Is Bigfoot on a noose?
No.
Okay, just checking.
I was just checking.
I'm like, it's fine if he's floating, but let's not hang him.
No, he's not hanging.
Okay.
He's repelling.
Oh, Sasquatch?
Yeah, he thinks he's Tom Cruise.
Hold on. Let me make the screen bigger so I can see.
Okay.
Oh, no. There is a line down to his neck right there.
That's not
I don't think that's his neck. I think it's the middle of the body.
Yeah, he's slowly going.
He's slowly going to die. That's what he's doing.
I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, you turned
That's
him.
around the middle
Okay.
of his body.
You need it. Okay, because you turned him, it looks a lot different now.
Yeah.
He's just having a good time. Oh my gosh. So I went, speaking of Bigfoot, because as everybody knows, I do live in Washington State, which is Bigfoot country.
Okay.
And so this weekend they opened up one of the roads that gets closed over the winter. So it was the first weekend it was opened up. I went up there with a couple of friends and we stopped at a gift shop on the way. And of course they had all this Bigfoot merch. And there was this really cute sticker that said something like, I have a crush on Bigfoot. And I wanted to get it, but I didn't have any cash and they were working on the cell phone towers, so they couldn't take a card.
It was really sad. All right. Well, Londa wants to know if he's bungee jumping. And then, yeah, Dad says hi. Londa says hi.
They made it.
Everyone says hi.
I thought Bigfoot would love a good bungee jump.
I can't do that. I could not do bungee jump. That is a
want
lot
to.
of faith I don't have right now.
I still haven't, but I want to. At least I've done the skydiving part.
Yeah. I could see. Yeah. The two of you will do that. You guys can do that.
Go bungee jumping together.
There we go.
We could do a Blondes, Books, and Campfire Tales bungee jump, and any of our viewers that wants to join, we can just all meet and bungee jump and then have s'mores and a campfire afterwards.
I support that. I will manage the s'mores and campfire.
I will eat the s'more on the way down.
Yes. Joke.
Try to finish it before it's gone, because otherwise it's going to be ripped out of my hand.
There we go.
I'm like, just watch your tongue, because if you're chewing as you get pulled back up.
Oh, yeah. You don't want to bite that.
Londa, I recommend skydiving. 100%.
I don't know.
I don't recommend it if you have a head cold. And I did that.
Yeah.
That
you have a head cold when you went?
Yep.
Yeah, I actually rescheduled because I had a cold.
Sorry.
That was enough practice. We're fine.
Like I was supposed to go. I went for my 18th birthday, and I was supposed to go on my birthday, but I had a head cold, so we rescheduled for the next week.
Okay.
I went with the head cold.
Yeah, I'm glad somebody, like, I think it was my mom actually. She was like, I don't think that's a good idea to do with a cold.
No, it's not.
You know what?
There's
I will
pressure
support
changes
this with
and
you.
your sinuses
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. So
It was
vampires.
also my first time in a plane. By the
Wow.
way.
You never been in a plane before?
Not until I went skydiving.
Like
Wow.
even just to travel?
Yeah. Well, apparently I went once when I was a baby.
Apparently. Okay.
Apparently. But I was a baby, like not even a year old. So.
Yeah, no, I get that.
So the plane that you were in, was it like a little Cessna plane or something?
I think so. I had to climb out onto the wing before I
Oh,
jumped.
wow.
That was a Twilight Zone episode.
That's kind of cool. I've never done that.
Yeah, I did it with the static line. So you don't go as high up, but you don't have somebody, you're in charge of everything, but except for pulling the cord, because you get hooked up to the static line and it pulls the cord as you jump.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I went with somebody so we can go higher.
yeah.
And in our plane, it was just the sheet metal, and every time we'd move or something, you go boom, boom, boom,
Yep.
boom, boom, boom. We're
Yeah,
sitting
it
on
was a
this.
small little plane.
That's the only thing holding us up.
Yeah, it was definitely a small little plane, and you would just climb out onto the wing and then whoosh.
Well,
And
that's cool.
yeah, I whooshed. And my dad didn't go on the same plane because he did tandem, so he could do the free fall, because he had done plenty of jumps before when he was in the Air Force. So he was like, I was like, oh, I want to do it on my own. Like, that was a big thing for me, was I did not want to do tandem. I wanted to be solo.
Okay.
And he was like, well, I want the free fall. So next time I'll probably do tandem so I can get the free fall, since I've done the static line singular before. But it was, yeah. And Londa, yes, my first plane, I jumped out of it. It's a really good, I mean, I can't play this game with you guys now, but it's really good for 2 truths and a lie.
Right.
People always think that one's the lie.
What would you guys say? Like, I know you said that would be your 2 truths and a lie, but what would you guys say if we ever played that game?
Other than that,
I have to come up with something. Probably be on the fly.
yeah.
That's the point.
Like, that's the only one that I like is usually a go-to for me. Other ones, okay. So we know that one's not a lie.
Sorry, Wanda.
Where's my tequila? I'm leaving.
She's all, these cookies are unacceptable. Like, we're done.
Okay. Let me see. Gosh, okay. I didn't know we were going to play 2 truths and a lie today.
Okay, look, we're 8 minutes in, and we have not mentioned vampires.
Hello, I discussed the ravenous undead. Okay.
You know what? You did.
Yes.
I
yes,
appreciate
yes.
that.
Thank you. You're the one that's asking me to come up with another truth and a lie.
Well, I'm just going with the flow at this point.
Okay, here we go. I've only ever lived in border states, and I once licked a dolphin.
Wait, what?
That's 2.
Once did you
Yeah,
say swim with the
One's a
dolphin?
truth and one's a lie.
Wait,
It's
I'm
2
sorry.
truths and a lie.
Wasn't really paying attention, I guess.
I'm going to say that the border states is a lie. Because, yeah,
Okay.
I know where all you've lived.
Okay. Ricky, what do you say? Do you agree?
Well, I just said I didn't actually hear. What
Oh,
all you
I'm
said.
sorry. Okay, so I said I've only ever lived in border states, and I once licked a dolphin.
You once lifted a dolphin?
Licked, like you lick.
Okay.
Like, I was swimming with
There's
the
not
dolphins
much-
experience, and
Yeah,
my
yeah.
tongue just kind of hit the dolphin.
The question is, okay, so a real dolphin as opposed to like a plush or something.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, we're not all furries, right?
Sure. Let's say the border states are the lie.
I think it's so funny that You guys are so willing to believe that I licked a dolphin. No, I've
Why
only
not?
ever lived in border states.
Wait, no, Ohio is not a border state.
What's above Ohio, bitch? Canada.
I'm looking.
It's a lake in Canada.
Okay, so that's true.
That's true. I've only ever lived in border states.
But when I Googled Ohio, all I saw was a lake. That's all I saw. I did not see country right there.
Yeah, there's no border crossing into Canada because of the lake.
No. That's cheating.
There's no border crossing in Maryland either, but there's also nothing but, it's also the edge of the freaking country.
Well, like, how did you come up with licking a dolphin as your lie?
I have no idea. It was a really good one, though.
That was a really good one.
Because you both were ready to believe it.
Because we know you. And you would.
I don't know about licking a dolphin. I might kiss one.
Yeah.
I feel like I won the game, though.
You did.
Sure.
You did right there.
Yes, you did.
That's okay. I've lived in, how many states have I lived in?
You've lived in a lot, yeah.
I think 5.
Ricky's been in different countries, though.
Yeah, I've never lived in another country.
Confusion, state of anxiety, state of. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I've lived West Coast, East Coast, North border, South border. I've lived all over the place, but it's all been border states.
There you go.
West Side, East Side, McDonald.
Oh my gosh, I feel like that was a thing we did in like junior high.
We did, because we did.
West Side, East Side, McDonald's.
We were cool. Yeah, so vampires.
Hey, guys start coming up with 2 truths and lies.
Yeah.
It's fine. I won the game anyway.
Nerd.
Okay, so speaking of vampires,
have, like, notes all over.
no, I honestly do. I have a few Wikipedia pages pulled up. I usually try to take notes, but I failed at that this time, so I just have my notes on backup.
All right. Well, Ricky took notes. Let's go with Ricky, and then we'll just kind of go.
Let's do it.
Hold on. What are my glasses?
Oh my god.
Such a perfect thing to say on your birthday. As you're getting older. Where's my glasses?
Actually,
wait,
yeah.
how old are you today?
Me? 51.
Aw.
I like it.
Why am I getting messages at the end here? Oh, okay.
I'm like, I feel like 51 is young, but I also know plenty of people that didn't make it to 51, so I also feel like it's an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yes. I mean, I am.
It's both young and an accomplishment, so that means it's a great age.
Yeah,
that is the most backhanded compliment.
I didn't mean it in a backhanded way at all.
Our family are like vampires. We're rather long-lived.
I'm like, it was truly like, because it is young, honestly. 51 is young, but at the same time, like, I know people that died way too young.
Well,
that's true.
well.
Yeah.
So it was more of just a sad reflection on people that we've lost.
Damn.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Anyway, let's go back to Happy Vampires.
Welcome.
Okay. Well, Happy Vampires is not what I brought up.
Okay. That's fair.
So, but it probably is apropos that I start, since I'm talking about the origination of vampires in general.
I like it.
Yeah, thank you. It's kind of like the whole primal fear of the dead return, but feeding on the living. So kind of the earliest whispers of vampires tend to be from Mesopotamia, like from Sumer, Arcadia, and Babylon. Yay!
Yay! I love it.
Good job. They would talk about, demons that drank blood, they stole infants, and haunted the darkness between the stars. There's kind of a theme of drinking blood and stealing infants. It's kind of a thing amongst all of them that just kind of go through. And part of it had to do with the fact that, they didn't really know or understand germs, and infant mortality rates were, skyrocketed and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. That's kind of the whole idea of the whole Fae, and they come and they switch out for your babies and all that stuff. Yeah. So, but yeah, so one of the earliest ones was talking about in Mesopotamia, talking about demons that do this. There are two famous demons in particular. There's the Lamassu, which is, the child snatcher, the blood drinker and the terror of Mesopotamia mothers. And it was actually a goddess demon. So the descriptions were kind of like, the descriptions etched in Sumerian and Akkadian texts, at least, were the head of a lion, the ears of a donkey, fingers tipped with talons, breath is disease and the touch is death, so that was kind of their original thought there. To the point to where their gods and demons, and it was kind of vague. They're both about the same. They would invoke others to fight this person. Pazuzu, for example, was the winged demon of storms, and it was invoked to drive her away. And in fact, they would have like small clay artifacts bearing his snarling visage placed around their homes just to protect against this mother killer, as it were. Freaking fly. Sorry. Speaking of. So, I mean, that was Lamassu. And then at about the same time, they had Lilith. And now this was Lilith before Judaism took over the mythos of Lilith. So,
okay, I'm going to interrupt for a second because having nothing to do with this episode, I just got this book about Lilith. It talks about her being I haven't started reading it yet, and I knew I wasn't going to have time to read it before we started. But it's talking about her whole mythology.
Validation.
So that just makes me laugh. I'm like,
so cool. Hey, at least I did my homework.
Okay, well, continue.
in Mesopotamia, you had Lamassu was the Brutus, the more brute force, and Lilith was more seductive. She was actually she appeared first in like Sumerian incantations. She was one of the Lilitu, which were desert spirits who dwell in the wastelands, and they would ride the night winds and that sort of thing. But they were depicted with flowing hair, alluring body, unnatural beauty, that sort of stuff. But the Akkadian texts, they talk about how she steals babies from cradles and feeds on their lifeblood. And that whole thing kind of persists through, as she migrates to the Hebrew tradition. She's then reshaped into like the first wife of Adam, and then the alphabet of Ben Sara, which is a text from the 8th century of CE, current edition. Yeah. That's not current edition. Thank you, Common Era. I know it's not current edition.
The current edition. Yes, CE is Common Era, and then BCE is before Common Era.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but according to the alphabet of Ben Sara, Lilith doesn't remain subservient. She speaks the secret name of God and flies from Eden. And then, in punishment, she is cursed to become a demon of the night. She haunts infants in their sleep and drinks their blood. Like I said, it's a common theme. And then medieval Jewish mysticism furthers her transformation. Lilith becomes the bride of Samael. She becomes like the queen of demons, a seductress who lures men into the night and leaving them, drained of life. So that's one. Then
page 1 down.
Yes, that was Mesopotamia.
Yeah, I mean, Lilith is definitely like really interesting to me. Like,
well, yeah, you've mentioned her last time we did a vampire type one that nobody seems to remember.
because I do feel like we were speaking about very specific vampires on that.
Okay,
one.
gotcha.
We were, yeah.
It's
This
not
is
that-
just generic.
This is more just like a vampire overview, and I do think that episode was very specific vampires.
Okay.
And if I'm wrong, I am sorry. And
No,
maybe
that's fine.
this statement should be more of a behind the scenes statement, but I do think one of us needs to go back and verify what all topics we've done before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Or that could be something farmed out to somebody who does, look into all that. Like, I don't know, Londa or something.
I was going to say Londa.
Londa, you want to do us a favor? No, I'm joking.
He was like, bye.
No, but like Lilith, I just think just before you go, we move on from her because she's just such a fascinating character, and she's become this huge feminist icon because she basically dared to rebel. If you look at her towards the whole Judaism and being the first wife of Adam, which came as a later mythology or mythos with her, but it's just so interesting. And then it's oh, okay. But then along came Eve, but she also rebelled, and it's just yeah, you can't tell women what to do. We're gonna do what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
So deal with it. I think that's what makes men so mad, is that they can't control us.
Well, that's what's sad, is the fact that they call it rebelling when we're just expressing our will.
Right? We're just living and trying to live our lives and do our thing, and they're yeah, we didn't want you to do that, so you're evil.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm
you like
so
how
sorry that I have a mind.
Right? You like how they're always talking about how they were seductresses. They would lure men out to drain them and stuff.
Right?
Maybe they were just hungry and they wanted a snack.
Honestly,
snack?
it's purity culture right there. Men aren't in control of their bodies, so women need to control theirs so that men don't sin. What? I'm in control of my sinning. A man needs to be in control of his.
Wasn't that on My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where they were hey, the man's the head of the household, but the woman's the neck who turns the head?
Yes.
Movie. Yep.
We go that way. That way.
Put some Windex on it.
Exactly. We're just gonna handle all that shit right there.
Anyway, you can move on now. I just wanted to talk about Lilith for a moment.
Right on. So, and you have to see, how that book turns out. So,
I do have another book about Lilith that I recently got. This one's a fiction book. The other one is more about her mythology.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, moving on to Greco-Roman Mediterranean area, the Greece and Rome blood drinkers. We've got Queen Lamia, who was a woman of great beauty and noble grace. She was loved by Zeus, unfortunately, and thus cursed by Hera.
Always spelled disaster. Being
I was gonna say Zeus just messes things up.
That's his entire point. Yeah. So, and because of that, Hera curses him, or her. Mm-hmm. And so Lamia's children were stolen from her one by one until she was left with only grief and madness. Gotcha. Sorrow reshapes her into a monster. But she has the mask of a beautiful deception, and then lower body stretches out into coiled form of a serpent. And she couldn't mother children of her own. Well, then she would steal them from others. But then it kind of goes into the whole regular trope of she becomes the creature of the night, eyes glowing, drinking blood of the infants, yada yada yada. Greek poets from
So something about Greek mythology, because Medusa wasn't her punishment? No, that Zeus wasn't involved in her punishment, but
that was Poseidon, his brother.
Poseidon was.
He was also
because Poseidon. Going to keep this YouTube friendly. Poseidon assaulted her.
Wait, was it Zeus or Poseidon?
Poseidon.
It was Poseidon.
Oh, okay.
Assaulted her.
All right.
In her temple, or in Athena's temple.
Yeah, that one was Athena. Yeah, so in Athena's temple, and she had dedicated her life to Athena, so she was supposed to stay a virgin. Poseidon wrecked it. Medusa was the one that got punished for it.
Yeah.
but you have the serpent thing as well.
Yeah. Basically,
And
male
again,
Greek gods are
because of what a man did.
what?
It's again because of what a man did. He's
Yeah.
taking the punishment for a man.
One way to control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going. I keep going off on things. Sorry.
Ricky's
Well, I
like,
mean-
I'm just trying to follow my notes right now.
Well, okay. And if you want to go like Harry Potter or something, who is not Cyrus? What is the guy whose name you're not supposed to remember?
Serious? Oh, Voldemort?
Voldemort.
Thank you. Yes, him. His not girlfriend, but he's got a snake who was a Lamia as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she, in that one, the mythos was like she can only transform so many times until she's always a snake. But
Yeah, and he like basically ended up forcing her into the snake body eventually, and she was in love with him. She was obsessed with him, and it ended up horribly for her.
Another control thing there. All right, so wasn't my intent. Sorry, but
This ended up being like a super feminist episode.
So the one of my friends is pretty sure that I'm Fae. So
Nice.
there's a little bit of that. Okay, so the Greek poets from about the 5th century BCE, they describe Lamia and her kind as beings that live off of the life force of the young. Later, she's also described as a shapeshifter and who can, turn into beautiful seductresses who lure men into their embrace. She's a predator who preys on desire itself. This is starting to form the whole vampire mythos here.
Mm-hmm.
And then the theme, of course, is the idea that, the deadly allure of a creature that you should not be trusted, but also can't be resisted, and then there's the Imputor, which was sent by Hecate, the goddess of witchcraft and the underworld. And Imputor is a shapeshifter who takes on the form of a beautiful woman, who lures men into her grasp and then drains them dry. Bodies become lifeless and pale. Which, very similar to like what a kitsune is and such. And there's a lot of, and Olive is in the background.
She was sitting, it was really funny because she was sitting over here staring at the bench like she wanted to get up. So I was like, well, come on, jump up and like join me on the bench. I didn't even, and then like by the time I noticed she was climbing the steps, all I saw was her butt.
Alrighty.
There she is.
Aww.
Oh. So, going with the Imputor, the poet Aristophanes, also 5th century BCE, describes the Imputor as a spectral being with a flaming head, one leg of a brass, and the other limb of a wild beast.
A leg of a
yeah. This could be very similar to I want to say in the Book of Job, where Job is I think it's Job who's prophesying before King Solomon, and basically he's talking about his kingdom is going to, there's certain things that are going to happen, and he's describing it in this allegorical sense with the head of brass, the feet of gold, and blah blah blah, just all the way down.
Wait, wasn't that Jacob?
Huh?
Was it Jacob or Job?
I don't remember.
I feel like that's more Jacob than Job, because Job was more like he was very righteous, but I don't think he was a prophet.
Yeah, he just had a bunch of stuff happen to him. What do you mean by like leg of brass?
So
leg turns into a brass?
It says he was described as having a flaming head, one leg of brass, and the other limb of a wild beast.
That is a bad day.
I was literally trying to imagine an animal called brass for a second, and then I was like, no, I think he means the metal.
It's a boy donkey, boy brass. It's brass. I
was like, what kind of animal is that?
It's a bad one. And then Rome.
I come by this naturally, you guys.
Okay. You're fine.
So do I. So in Rome, they have the Strix. And the Strix are like the unseen terror that preys on infants in the dead of night. but they're more owl-like creatures with like shrieking cry. They're the omen of doom, and the drinker of blood. Kind of, I was reading through this. I'm like, wait, this is a lot like the Ahul. This is a lot like in Africa and stuff. And I stopped after Mediterranean because it was just way too much, and I'm already halfway into this. So, like in Africa, they had stuff that will drop down on you, and in China, they have the hopping corpses and stuff, which I remember those from a movie actually. So anyway, so yeah, the Strix, the owl-like creatures, and they would descend on cradles using their
the Strix or the Striga.
So,
or does the Striga come later?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
sorry, I'm trying
Romans
to jump ahead. I didn't mean to. Okay.
But they would come down. They drink the blood and stuff.
Yeah.
But the Romans also believed that garlic could ward off the Strix, and so that's kind of where that part comes in.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. And then the name Strix would later evolve into Striga and Strigoi in, Latin and Slavic languages. The transliteration was more like witch or revenant or vampire, and so it just kind of goes onto there. So that Strigoi and such would mean like witch or anything like that, or vampire and such. So that's kind of where they went with that, and then the research I was going into started going to the other land, so I'm like, I have to stop it here. So, but one thing I should mention is, where is it? Somebody would watch the Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, and it terrorized him like all through childhood. So they eventually made me watch it, and it's pretty hokey now. But as a kid,
wait, is that the name of the movie? Dracula Risen from the Grave?
Has Risen from the Grave. Yes.
Has Risen.
Yes.
I don't think I've heard of that.
Yep. Christopher Lee.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Christopher Lee came up in my stuff too. But yeah, like I started with the lore, and I ended up going down a rabbit hole into literature. So I'm really glad that you stuck with the lore.
I mean, this blog's books and Campfire Tales, so sure, literature works.
Yeah. So, but like one thing, like going back to like the ravenous undead, like one thing that I thought was really interesting about that, and that did go back to like more Victorian times, and it was because like people were like digging up bodies and finding them, like it looked like they had, like their burial cloths were being eaten and their bodies were in just like this crazy state, and there was blood and all this stuff. And so they were like, oh, well, the dead people are waking up and eating their burial cloths and eating themselves. So it wasn't even necessarily about like, they thought they were like going out and drinking other people's blood. It was like they were eating themselves, which was really weird. And it's like, yeah, that was probably just bugs. But, but it was just like really interesting to think like, it's like now with like what we know, like the knowledge we have that they didn't have. It's just, and then we also know now that a lot of people used to be buried when they were just actually in comas.
Yeah. That's why they had the little bell, right? They could ring it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like a dead ringer. That's where that comes from, just in case you didn't know. Because they would literally tie pieces of string around somebody's finger. And they would have, again, also another common term, the graveyard shift. Somebody staying there overnight, listening for those bells in case somebody had actually accidentally been buried alive. So I've always thought that was kind of an interesting thing. And then the rabbit hole that I went down was Carmilla. Have you guys heard of Carmilla?
Sounds maybe.
I had never heard of Carmilla before.
Yeah.
Carmilla was a short novella about a vampire. Predates Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I think everybody, and that's really what took me down the rabbit hole, because I was like, oh, because everybody always thinks of like vampire literature and thinks of Bram Stoker's Dracula, but Carmilla came first. And so many vampire tropes really started with Carmilla. So the basic story of Carmilla is that she was this young girl, like a teenager, and she came to stay at this house. And the daughter of the owner of the house, Laura, was also a teenager. Carmilla's mom was like, I have to leave her here while I go do some stuff. Don't ask her about her family. Don't ask her about her history. Don't ask her about any of this stuff. And she would sleep really late into the day. I don't think it said anything about her not being able to go out at night, or not being able to go out in the day, but she would sleep really late during the day and would do most of her activity in the night. And being that it was published before Dracula, so like 1800s, there was nothing explicit, but it was very lesbian overtones on it.
Okay. I do remember that.
Which is just really interesting because I don't think of Victorian literature and lesbian overtones. So, but it very much was about, the vampire seductress, the lesbian vampire, and so much of it is very similar in ways to Bram Stoker's Dracula. I'm like, he had to have read Carmilla. He had to have.
And in fact, that did hit on some of my research that he did deal heavily on a lot of stuff from 18th century and such. So, and there were notes that he had from there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, because I mean, you've got the castle. She was a countess.
She shapeshifted into a cat too, didn't she?
She did.
I'm sorry, I went ahead.
No, you're fine. I interrupted your stuff too. It's fine. That's what we do. She shapeshifted into a cat. She was she would go to the neck, but also to their breast. And just like, and the whole romantic relationship with who they were feeding off of. And I think with Dracula, the romantic relationship was a little bit more overt because it was heterosexual. Where with like lesbianism, especially back in Victorian times, like that was very hush hush and hidden. Yeah. Absolutely right. Yeah. I think that I think a lot of sexual history that was going on in the Victorian age was left out for specific reasons. Like especially in America, because we're very Puritan based. We don't want to talk about people being open about sexuality in this country.
Yeah, that's true.
Very Puritan based. So in Europe, they might think something completely different, but I think like we're just very Puritan here. So like, so we're very much like, oh, people didn't have sexual deviances back then, or I don't even feel like deviance is the right word, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
We're all so innocent.
Like, there was none of this stuff, and it's like, no, it was totally there, and we just try to hide it.
Yeah.
And act like it didn't happen.
Exactly.
But I definitely thought that was really interesting, and there's so many, like, one of the things, like, I was looking at the movies. The list of movies that are based off of Carmilla is insane. And I never even heard of her really until I was researching for this episode. And there was a sequel to Universal's Dracula called Dracula's Daughter. It was based on Carmilla. Okay. There was recently, this one made me laugh. It was a 2019, I think. Oh no, sorry. It was 2009. Comedy just called Lesbian Vampire Killers. Like they just full on jumped into it, and that just made me laugh a lot. So yeah, there's definitely Blood Spattered Bride. There was one that hold on. There's one just called Carmilla.
No, Queen of the Damned was a Anne Rice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The Curse of Styria, which kind of goes back to like the Striga and like all those. The Unwanted, which I haven't seen that movie, but I've heard of that one. That one just makes references to it. And then what was the other one that I was like, oh my gosh, that one? Sorry, I'm looking at the list of movies.
So when you think of like TV and movie and stuff, what are some of your guys' favorite vampire?
True Blood with the redneck red vampires.
Heck yeah, True Blood's a great one.
Suck it, stick ass.
Suck it.
I lost it. and What They Do in the Shadows is right up there too.
Yeah.
Oh, the What You Do in the Shadows or What We Do in the Shadows?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, but True Blood is one. I mean, books wise, the Anita Blake Vampire Hunter series.
Yeah.
That's definitely one for me. Sorry, I choked on my tea.
I had one where the vampire was actually a detective, and it goes into essentially you had paranormal stuff, but also aliens, and vampires could tell the difference between alien, a human, and undead and stuff. It was kind of cool. Yeah, it was actually kind of cool. And there used to be a TV series, back in the 80s, where like First Watch or something like that. I don't know, or First Night or something. I don't know. It was vampire was a.
I think I've heard of that
detective.
one, but yeah, I think I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm trying to think. I know there's more. I mean, well, is she a vampire in this one? I think she is. Which I've mentioned this book series before. No, she just talks to ghosts. Vampire.
I like to me vampires are not like the fun loving types. They're hunters. So 30 Days of Night is like a really good vampire movie for me.
I remember Dracula 2000. That one was pretty
I remember that, yeah. Even Dracula Untold with Luke Owens. No, not Luke Owens. Luke Evans.
Your coughing is affecting your lighting, by the way.
It is kind of interesting, yeah, to see that.
That's just one of my light bulbs dying. I have multiple light bulbs dying throughout my apartment. I need to get a ladder so I can reach them because I actually have I have a little step ladder, but I have 9-foot ceilings, so I can't reach them.
Wow. You just hold Olive up there. Just have her do it. I used to
do
it all the time.
She could totally unscrew a light bulb. Look at her.
Yeah. She can do it.
Totally do it.
Soft paws. Kitty soft paws.
It's about time that she earns her rent. She doesn't kill any bugs.
Vampires with Blade.
Blade is really good vamp.
Ooh,
I really like
really
that whole universe. So you have Blade, and then you have like the Strain with the same guy who created the vampires in Blade created the Strain vampires with the whole like extra tongue and like their mouth goes like that and their tongue comes out.
Kind of like your Chupacabra.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one of the original designs that you had for it, the ones you had to draw.
Yeah, the one that the one you created for me.
So.
Yeah, that's what they had right there. So I like those. The whole like angst when it comes to vampires and trying to find their one true love. I'm like, no, like they are hunter killers for me. That's how I like my vampires. Like they are hunters.
Like you said, your vamps don't sparkle. Which
my vamps do not sparkle. They glisten in blood.
I like my vampires like I like my drinks. Bloody.
Yeah, there you go.
Bloody
red.
No, I definitely like.
I mean, Jim Carrey was in a vampire one. Once Bitten.
Yeah, Once Bitten.
I think they would go after the femoral artery.
Yeah.
Once Bitten was. Oh my gosh, that was such a good movie.
Londa likes them all. Dad, I think he's talking about.
There's
an American version and an English version.
Yeah.
I think it's called Being Human.
Yes.
Something like that, yeah.
That's what it's called.
They're all trying to pass as human, except the ghost can't leave the apartment.
Well, she's stuck to what ties her there, and then she can eventually travel.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I'm like, that's definitely a good one. I don't know. I just feel like I agree with you about like them being hunters and like, but I do also, I like the stories where they're like basically a monster. But I do also like the stories where they have like depth to them, and there's like, so like, like Anne Rice stories too. Like, it's like they're monsters, but they're like they're not just monsters.
I get that.
Yeah.
Londa's over here asking about Hotel Transylvania, where he's all blah blah.
I mean,
blah,
best
blah.
vampire movie ever. Hello.
So you'd be all into Asterion from Baldur's Gate 3.
What?
Oh, it's like a huge fan base off of that.
Okay, well, it doesn't reach 2 out of 3 of our podcast viewers here.
I think I've only seen Hotel Transylvania once, but it was a really fun movie.
I really like that series. Rick, what were you talking about though? Tell us about yours.
Oh, Asterion. He's from Baldur's Gate 3. It's a video game, very popular out there. A lot of fangirls over Asterion in particular.
Oh, is he like a sexy vampire?
Yes, he's British and type deal. And I can't stand him, but
British.
Yeah.
For like,
does he have the skin of a killer?
He's damaged and so people want to fix him, and again, not my cup of tea.
Gotcha.
So I do have some friends that are super into Twilight. Because of course I do. And never been super into Twilight, but back in May I did go down to the Olympic Peninsula, so we did take a side trip to Forks, and I covered myself in body glitter and sent them a photo. And I was like, "This is the skin of a killer."
Nice.
Because I was like, I'm in Forks, and you guys like Twilight, so they thought it was really funny. So that's all that mattered. I'm like, I hit my target audience with that. So
there you go.
Gotta go to the dance clubs.
I'm not trying to cut this episode too short, but I have to go to work soon. I'm doing an overnight.
I was like, you don't work at night.
Gone.
I know. So I am going to cut this episode short just a little bit because I found out I have to go pick up one of my employees.
Oh.
So that's
you guys have to do inventory tonight?
Huh?
You have to do inventory?
No, we are we're rehauling my entire back room and creating a break room out of another room. There's a lot going on. So
that sounds like it.
Yeah. So I'm going to drink some coffee and some Red Bull and go to work tonight, and I'll be off in the morning.
Good. You deserve to be off in the morning. Jeez.
Wanda says, I had teenage girls when it came out. We read the books and went to the theater for all the movies. My husband even went.
No, Londa, like, I mean, I feel like we were in our 20s when those books came out.
Yeah.
We were in our 20s, and like my sister was obsessed with it. And then Bethany and I had a friend at the time that was also obsessed with it. So they convinced me to read it, and I did read every single book.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they were horrible, and I hated every second of it, but they were also, even though they're thick, they're fast reads.
They are.
I know it's geared towards teenagers, but I feel like it was third grade reading level, honestly. Yeah. And so, everybody was like, "Oh, you'll like it." And I was like, "Yeah, no." And then the one character that I was okay with ended up being a pedophile. So,
Oh, Jacob?
Jacob was the only character I was kind of okay with. And then he ended up being a pedophile, and I hated him too. So, but I've seen every single movie. I've read every single book. Well, at least the 4 original books. I think she's written more since then.
Probably.
Not my thing. She's very anti-feminist, unlike Lilith. Lilith is very pro-feminist. Bella is the most anti-feminist vampire that exists.
You know what, Londa, from an entertainment perspective, they were fun movies.
I didn't like books.
Yeah.
But I don't judge people for liking them, if that makes sense.
He was not. There are different mindsets of that.
I'm sorry, he was in love with a baby the moment she was born. He was a pedophile.
Yeah, there's different aspects to that.
Yeah, I won't button on that one, Londa. But no, he was a
Meanwhile,
pedophile.
Dad's over here like Red Bull. Yeah, Red Bull. I don't know.
No, like I don't judge people for liking Twilight. It was very popular for a reason. I was not his target audience.
Yeah, and that's fine. Londa is like hardcore. Y'all can go back and forth, and I
will fight you to the death on this. Not right now, but I will.
Yeah,
fight
I
you
would normally support you guys on this, but I have to go to work.
No, you're fine.
And you're
fine.
the moderator.
I mean, this is going to be a conversation that will never end anyway. Londa is going to defend Jacob, and I will keep saying he's a pedophile. He was in love with a baby.
But none of them were Strigoi.
None of them were Strigoi and none of them were Lilith. We can all agree on that.
No one has anything on the So.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining, and happy birthday.
Blah blah.
Right. Blah, blah, blah. Well, it's been an interesting episode.
Didn't even get to you.
I know, we didn't even get to your research.
It's okay.
We talked about Ricky's research and mine, which really went into Carmilla. I was just like, how have I not heard of this story?
I just want to say happy birthday, Rick. I hope you had a good day today. And we will see you guys in 2 weeks. I don't think we have a topic for 2 weeks. We don't have an author either.
Maybe we'll have the video from Leah.
That is true. Yeah. So Ricky and I, we are doing an escape room for Ricky's birthday, and they did give us permission to film it. So we're going to
have a horror themed one, a ghost story.
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to ask, are we allowed to know what the theme is now, or do we have to wait and find out?
Yeah.
Ghost and demon. I mean,
I like it.
So we're going to do that. We're going to film it. Ricky's going to edit it and put it together. And yeah, hopefully we'll have that all ready for you guys. And we will see you guys in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.